We're entering the Parshios, learning about the great Avraham Avinu. And the Midrash, in the beginning of last week's Parsha, in the beginning of Parshas Noach, commenting on the word Haya, the pasuk said that Noach was an Ish Tzaddik, Tamim Haya B'dorosav. And the Midrash says that any time the Torah uses the word Haya, it means that the person was a tzaddik, he was a righteous individual, mitchilaso v'ad sofo, from the beginning of his life all the way to the end of his life. And the statement is said by Rabbi Yochanan. Hold on to that name, very important. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, Kol mi shenemar bo haya, anytime it says the word haya regarding a person, hu tchilaso, hu sofo, he was the same the whole way through, he was a tzaddik. So the Midrash asks, but that doesn't make any sense. Because the pasuk says in Yecheskel, Echad haya Avraham. Torah, the Navi uses the word haya also by Avraham. And we know, says the Midrash, that Reish Lakish tells us that Avram wasn't a tzaddik his whole life. Avram found Hashem at a later point in life. And the Gemara answers that Reish Lakish says that it was already from, the Midrash answers that it was already from the age of 3. So it was basically his whole life. At the age of 3, Avram found Hashem. So really, Avram was righteous his entire life. Then the Midrash continues and says, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, again, remember that name, that Avram didn't find Hashem at the age of 3, but found Hashem at the age of 48. Okay, 48. You can't say his whole life then was the same, that he was always a tzaddik. So the Midrash says that Haya means something different. Okay. But the commentaries on the Midrash say, hold on one second. Pull the fast one on us. Because earlier you said that it was Rabbi Yochanan who said that anytime he says Haya means he was always a tzaddik. And that's Rabbi Yochanan that says that at 48 he was finding Hashem only then. So that doesn't fit. So the commentators say, you're right. We're going to have to switch one of the Rabbi Yochanans to Rabbi Yona's son. Or someone different, because the two opinions don't fit together. But I saw an amazing explanation. I had once heard this before from someone else, but an amazing explanation from the Dubno Maggid. If you want to look it up inside, it's the beginning of Parshas Noach in the Sefer Ohel Yaakov. And he says as follows. He says, Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that Avram's entire life was good. Avram was good the entire life. What do you mean, Rabbi Yochanan? You hold that at the age of 48, that's when he discovered Hashem. So the answer is a different way of reading the Midrash. The Midrash says, Rabbi Yochanan says that at the age of 48, Avram recognized Hashem. And what does Haya mean? Shahaya metukan lahadrich kol ha'olam kulo b'tshuva. He had the ability, and he did, bring the entire world to recognize Hashem. Again, it seems like something different. He was bad, and then later on, he performed good. Says the Dubno Maggid, no, you don't understand. The only reason Avram was able to be successful in bringing back so many people to appreciate and recognize Hashem was only because he went through 48 years of not knowing Hashem, of being involved, entrenched in Avodah Zarah. So when he, at the age of 48, was able to go to a person and say, hey, how is this world exactly working? You think just like happened? How do you look at the human body? How do you go ahead and see the universe and everything around us? There has to be a God. They didn't just turn to him and say, oh, come on, there are a lot of other options. There are a lot of other idols out there that maybe did it. No, you don't understand. For 48 years, I tried it all. I grew up in a home of idol worship. I saw what's out there. I understand what works and what doesn't work. And I'm telling you, this is the only thing that there is to believe in. It was because of what we would call the bad years in Abraham's life that he was able to then go ahead and inspire others and bring them back to the truth. So when Avraham went ahead at that point in his life and started to act that way, he basically retroactively changed the whole beginning of his life to be purposeful. There's a reason he had to go through this. There was a reason he had to explore. There's a reason that he had to go ahead and think and try things out and go through what he went through, because all of that allowed him to be successful in a way that no one else would have been able to be successful. Like Dubno Maggid said, Avram would go to someone and someone right would challenge back. What do you know about this? What do you know about this? He said, oh, let me tell you what I know. And he was able to change people's lives in the most significant way, to the extent that Rabbi Yochanan was able to say that his entire life, the entire life of Avram, from the beginning to the end, was all a tzaddik. Because even the years that maybe he wasn't what we would call a tzaddik if you looked at it in a vacuum, all changed for to be a purpose, for the good, and to help other people. To be able to do kiruv. And sometimes a person might think that I made a mistake in my life. Could be there's some people like that out there. The pasuk says in Koheles, Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher lo yachata. Everyone out there has made a mistake in their life. And sometimes a person will feel like, that's it. I did something wrong. I had a certain experience. I acted in a way that I don't hold of anymore. And let me just delete that from my past. Start anew. Don't think about it. And once in a while, the Yetzer Hara gets the better of us and maybe makes us depressed that we wasted a couple of years, or wasted more than a couple of years, or did a certain thing, or whatever it is, and tries to pull us down and pull us down and pull us down. We have to realize that, yes, milechatchila, we wouldn't have gone into doing those things, but once it happened, there's a very, very good chance that we can help many more people in ways that others that didn't have those experiences could not help. We might get people in this generation in a way that others don't get them. We might be able to relate to them and give to them and inspire them and bring them back because of what we went through. And we could make a tikkun. We could change everything that perhaps we did inappropriately or incorrectly and change that for a purpose for the good. The Rambam says in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah, he's describing Avram's journey, and he says that Avram came to see God at the age of 48, and the Ravid pipes in over there. And he says there's another opinion that says 3 years old. That's the opinion of Reish Lakish, that at the age of 3. So it sounds like it's a machlokas. 3 years old, 48 years old. But that Gos Maimoni on the side of the Rambam, and the Kesef Mishnah brings from the Ramach as well, so there's no machlokes. They both agree. It's just it was 2 stages to Avraham recognizing the truth of Hashem. At the age of 3, Avram started to ask questions. My 3-year-old also asks me some questions sometimes, and then I just distract them and move on. But they ask good questions, very good questions. And Avram already at the age of 3 started exploring, and it took a long time until that actually kicked in at the age of 48. And Rav Chatzkel Weinfeld pointed out that it's fascinating that it was Reish Lakish who was the one who decided to pick the age of 3. Again, there's no argument. 3 started the exploration, 48 he was in. Reish Lakish says 3 was the time he found God. What do you mean? He didn't find God yet. He started to ask questions at that point. Yes. Reish Lakish, the Gemara tells us, was a Baal Tshuva. Reish Lakish himself was from the greatest thieves of his generation. He went through a whole process till he found Rabbi Yochanan and started to be Rabbi Yochanan's chavrusa. Reish Lakish taught us that even once Avram started asking questions, he hasn't started yet to become the Baal Tshuva, but he started to ask good questions, and he started to think, and he started to explore. Even that becomes good. Even that becomes part of the process that built him for later on. And it's important for every single one of us to realize, especially the youngsters in the room, including myself. We relate, every few years is a whole new generation. The world is totally different. And sometimes people say that, you can't relate to the new generation. Well, that's somewhat true. Somewhat, you need the elderly to go ahead and guide us and to remind us of what it was and how it was and to allow us to strive for something bigger and help us grow. But there's something that that young student is able to do that others can't do. And you all know friends and family, you know people that are your age, a year younger than you, 2 years younger than you, 2 years older than you. You know what they're dealing with. You know what they're dealing with in ways that no one else knows. And it's incumbent upon every single one of you to then go ahead and share that with them and explain that you went through a similar process and you also had questions. And the questions are good, and the people welcome the questions. There are places like Yeshiva that welcome your questions, not scared of it, and will help you through that process. But you could explain to them what that process was, how you got there, inspire them, show them that it's doable, and then you could go ahead and bring them all back and bring them to the amazing places that you've all achieved. No one should ever feel, oh, I wasted my life. Oh, I'll never be able to regroup. I'll never be able to be what I want to become because of something that I might have done in the past. No such thing. It happened. You did it. You actually might be able to accomplish more because of it. Again, we don't recommend it to begin with, but once it happened, you could be a bigger person because of it. And it's incumbent on every single one of us to use all of our experiences and all of our sensitivities and all of our ins in different circles and different people to go ahead and say, I know this group of people. I know how to inspire this person. And Bezrat Hashem, by doing so and pushing it forward and sharing all the amazing things that we've all learned and all achieved, Bezrat Hashem, that will also uplift anything that anyone ever experienced that maybe wasn't the most ideal. It will bring it to a higher level of Kedusha to allow our entire lives to be one of tzidkus, of righteousness from beginning to end. Shavua Tov.